Welcome back to Walk with TFB. Tim Bryson here, and as y'all know, I'm a Black millennial who is eager to have unfiltered conversation with authentic people centered on education, sport, and culture. Today, we are walking with a cycle bar enthusiast, jet setter, and Levi's mom. A Dublin, Ohio native, she left the Buckeye State to attend the University of South Carolina at Columbia, so that we're on the same page. And while at Carolina, she was an orientation leader, university ambassador, and student teacher before earning her bachelor's degree in elementary education. She later went on to earn an add-on license from UNC Wilmington to work with academically and intellectually gifted children. Our guest is a self-identified educator and has worked in several public school systems in the Southeastern region of the United States. Though her primary role was teaching in traditional classroom environments, she also led literacy curriculum design, science instructional planning, and analyzed assessment data to drive academic growth. Her experiences in the classroom made room for a purpose pivot into educational consulting and technology. This guest is a day one friend, day one Walk with TFB sponsor and listener, and craft beer advocate. See, I know I'm hyped, but without further ado, y'all help me welcome Courtney France.
I swear, I know everyone says this, but you have a way with words because I never would have been able to put my background the way that you just said it. So thank you. I appreciate that introduction.
We have fun, Courtney, not Chelsea, but check this out. Like I said, you're day one. You probably heard every episode up to this point.
Walk with TFB, day one. Love it.
You feel me? And I was going to put this in your bio, but I need to get like a more organic and natural reaction to this shit. And so the other day I saw you tweet some shit. You tweet some funny shit, by the way. But one thing in particular that you said was like, yo, I finally realized, something to the tune of like, I finally realized that spades is just more cards than euchre. And I was like, finally someone that plays fucking euchre, yo.
Thank you. I mentioned euchre when I went to college because everyone was like clowning me for not knowing how to play spades. And I was like, is this euchre? And everyone said no. I read the rules like last week. It's the same damn game. Just half the deck. Same damn game. So yes, euchre is where it's at. If you play spades, if you talk shit about spades and me not knowing how to play, come meet me on the table with euchre. That's all I got to say.
Hey, look. Euchre is probably the only game that I'll put money on.
Camp, I ran the tables. Euchre was my sport. So just know, if you ever need to play a virtual session, let's go. Hands down, I'm kicking that ass.
Yo, that's real. Yo, that made my day though when I saw that tweet. I was like, no, I'm going to say this for our conversation because it's a game and more people need to know how to play.
It must be a Midwest thing because like down south, actually, I don't even say it's down south. I think just the Black community of spades, but Midwest, we know euchre. So
we know euchre, yo. But like I said in the intro, yo, you're a day one listener, day one supporter. I, as the host of this show, want to say thank you
record. Of course, you're doing content. Can't help but support. You're doing great things.
It's free game for all of us. That's what I always tell myself.
There you go.
Free game for all of us. But you also know as a day one listener that we are doing some shit different this season. Mm-hmm. And so before we get started with your story, what brings you Black joy? What's bringing you Black joy right now?
Ooh. That is a good question. What brings me Black joy? There's a number of different things. I think the one that's really getting me through now and that got me through the pandemic was just seeing genuine joy from anyone, whether that was Black love, whether that was just crushing your resume, getting a promotion, whether it was just being fully transparent with where you are at in your healing journey, your mental health, just really seeing people be okay with themselves, share that with themselves and find happiness in whatever that brings them. I think that's something that's gotten me through. But besides that, something else that brings me Black joy for myself, which you mentioned, cycle bar. I'm an enthusiast. So every single day, just finding new ways to push myself on the bike and push myself for my own health and well-being has been something that has been pivotal during this time.
How many rides do you think you've gone on? Oh, like history.
I just reached 400 on Friday of last week. So I think I'm on like 403 right now. A little too many, a little too obsessed.
Jeez. I'm glad to hear that though. That seems to be a more common theme, but I think it's evident in the Black community, right? Giving back, want to see others win. Mm-hmm. I'm glad we're finally embracing this, to be honest, because I feel like for a little bit, especially in undergrad, at least coming out of undergrad, trying to find jobs, a lot of competition. And I think we've seen a lot more recently, a lot of collaboration, a lot more selfless support, a lot more sponsorship. So I'm glad that brings you joy as well, Courtney.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think maturing, getting older, I think to your point, like we were all competitive as kids, wanting that spot in student council or whatever else it was. And now it's just like, hey, we can all win. Let's pull up a seat at the table. Let's all do it. Let's all do it big.
So let's all eat, and let's eat and transition to segment one. I'm so glad you're on this podcast, yo, because you know how this shit roll. You know how this roll. What's your story? What's your story?
This is the question I've been dreading. Oh my goodness.
Everyone does it. Everyone does. But Courtney, I don't even got to tee you up. What's your story?
What's my story? All right. I feel like I'm either going to overshare or not share enough. So let me know either way. But my story, I would start with, I was a kid that was born in Columbia, South Carolina. So I'll kind of bring that back in once we get later down my story. But was born in Columbia, South Carolina, had a very small and short stint in the South. Ended up by the age of 5 moving between South Carolina, Chicago, North Carolina, landed in Ohio when I was in kindergarten. And that was kind of the first moment where I was really aware of my educational background, my experiences in the classroom, my own learning experience, for lack of better words. But when we moved to Ohio, I think that was also the very first time that I was aware of my race. Ohio was a very different background than what Chelsea and I, my sister, grew up in North Carolina, where it was a lot more diverse. I think Ohio, when I turned 5 and moved there, it was just wake up call. We are literally the only Black people in our daycare. We're the only Black people in this school. We're the only Black people in this neighborhood. So that was a huge culture shock for Chelsea and I growing up and trying to adapt into our learning environment. But I think overall we adjusted. We loved Dublin. But what I do remember most about my overall story is just a passion for learning. And that has shown up from elementary, middle, and high school, from ways that I could just get involved in the classroom and out of it. I very specifically remember my mom or both of my parents having such a drive for education, literally from the moment we were kids. Every summer, my mom made us go pick out books to read. We had to get math workbooks every night. I remember reading with my mom. So long story short, education was something that was very, very big in not only my life, but my entire family, and the emphasis that my parents had on us. But yeah, so fast forward, did the everyday middle school, high school journey, got involved in a number of different things: track, basketball, gymnastics, cheerleading, literally every single sport or extracurricular. My parents never really let Chelsea or I not do it, for lack of better words. They let us put whatever we wanted to do at the forefront and run with that. So I was very active in sports growing up. And then probably when I got to high school is when things started dying down, extracurriculars. And that's where I started really honing in my focus of what I wanted to do. So that was theater. I knew I wanted to teach from when I was a young kid. So I really started to focus on those when I was in high school. And that really started to show itself when I joined a program called the Dublin Teacher Academy in high school. That was a really good program in high school where I was able to spend half of my senior year, half of the day, actually interning in the classroom, working with teachers of all different levels, grading papers, writing lesson plans, and all that good stuff. But that experience really launched me into the classroom, gave me a lot of great background experience, allowed me to present in my very first teaching conference when I was in high school. So it was really like, for lack of better words, I knew it from walking away at that moment. Teaching was for me. This is what I wanted to do. So fast forward a little bit more into college, definitely got into the major of elementary education. And again, new teaching was exactly what I wanted to do. Had some awesome internship and student teaching experiences. And one of the best ones that I had was with a guy named Tal Thompson. Tal, if you're listening, shout out to you. But he was a teacher that awakened my mind, for lack of better words. I know that's a weird way to put it, but he made me understand that teaching was so much more than what I thought it was. And through working with him, I knew that the classroom was the only stop for me, that this is going to be the one thing that I was going to do, and really wanted to make a difference based off my work with him. So from there, I moved into the classroom, teaching in Charlotte after college, and then later on in Atlanta, working in 2 different backgrounds. One was Title I, very, very low socioeconomic status type of school where the kids needed a lot of additional resources. And that was a great experience for me, which I'm sure we'll get into in some of the questions. And then I moved to Atlanta shortly after, and that was the complete opposite experience. That was a very affluent background, kids whose parents were top lawyers in Atlanta. We had NFL football players, plastic surgeons, all their kids coming to this school. So it really felt like I got the best of both worlds in my education background, but it was also a shock for me to see some of the resources that were afforded to some groups of kids and not others. So I know that was kind of a roundabout way to get to my story, but just a little educational background on Courtney France.
No, this is good. Stop apologizing.
I know. I gotta stop. I'm just trying to keep up with the level of people you have on this podcast.
You're already there. You're already there. But before we get to what you're doing now, learn more about what you're doing now. 2 questions that immediately come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
One, you said you're born in Columbia, South Carolina. We're gonna come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Come back to how we chose Carolina as a school for undergrad.
Oh, great question. Yeah. So Gamecock blood, I guess, has been with me since birth. So I was born in Columbia, South Carolina. The reason my family was there was because my dad was getting his MBA at University of South Carolina at the time. So once he finished that program and then went on his career path and moved, when we got to Ohio, I think Chelsea and I knew early on that we liked Ohio for what it was, but we were also ready to leave. And I know I got there when I was 5, but it was very quick that this was going to be a short stop in our journey, I guess. So when we started looking for colleges, luckily I have Chelsea, who's my older sister, who was recruited athletically. So a lot of my college tours were hers being recruited. And one of those stops was South Carolina as well, because she was recruited for track and cross country. I think that was my freshman year of high school. And as soon as I stepped foot on that campus, I was like, USC is it. This is where I need to be. And from that moment on, like USC was my number one choice.
Wow. That's so interesting to me because I tried to get my transfer. So that's so.
Yeah. So we got 3 Gamecocks in the France family. It kind of runs in the blood a little bit.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you knew you wanted to teach at an early age,
Mm-hmm.
right? You went through Dublin Teacher Academy, whatever. But like, at what age, at the earliest age, do you remember wanting to become a teacher?
Ooh, that's tough. I bounced between like 3 and 5, somewhere in there. Like when I tell you I knew I was going to be a teacher, like I just knew. I had an American Girl doll, all of her trinkets and toys. Like she had her own chalkboard and whiteboard and her little geography textbook. Like I knew when I was a kid that I was going to be a teacher. My mom had a custom wooden desk built for my bedroom. So I would sit there and I would teach. It was ridiculous, but like I knew when I was a kid, like 3 or 5.
Wow. No, I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe your mom too. Shout out to moms.
Shout out to mom.
Shout out to mom. So check this out. You taught, and you're a pretty good teacher at that, right? Being nominated for different awards in the district and in the county and the city, what have you. But what is this? 2019. I remember this post actually. I think it was you were in Chicago, I believe, when you posted this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, yeah, you made a decision to step out of the classroom into a new environment, which I called earlier purpose pivot, excuse me. So talk to us more about why the decision to leave the traditional classroom environment and then how you got to where you are now in your current role.
Yeah. So the first question, why to leave the traditional classroom environment? I think that's such a loaded question that I'm still, every single day that I move past that experience, I think I'm uncovering more about why I left. But the first thing is general burnout. Like I think what a lot of teachers are experiencing now, especially in the wake of COVID, is what I felt back in 2019 when I left the classroom. It was just a feeling of, I am up every single day at 5 a.m. I am driving. I'm at the school by 6 a.m. I'm working every single second until the students get out the door. From there, I'm enjoying my time with my students, but then I'm working more until 6 p.m. to come home and want to hang out with Levi, for example, and have more work. So at that point in time, I don't think I realized it, but one, I knew I was burnt out. And so I toyed around with the idea of leaving and what I wanted to do for a while. And at first it was just get the hell out of education, Dodge, never do this again, I'm done. But after some reflection, I realized I actually do have a passion for learning, a passion for educating children. So as I pivoted my job search, again, still not knowing exactly what I wanted to do, I knew it had to have something to do with curriculum, education, instruction. And to be very honest, to answer that second part of your question, I don't know how I landed this job. I don't know exactly what search filter I put in, but it was just almost out of desperation. Every single day, I know I need to get out of this headspace. I know I want to do something new. What filter can I put in? What job search word can I put in to find something new? And luckily, I found something that was the perfect fit of everything that I wanted to do outside of the classroom. So I'm not sure if that answers all parts of your question. So let me know, but it was just a moment of almost an immediate wake up call. I remember it was 6 a.m. and I was sitting outside of the doors waiting for the custodian to open the school. And I was the only one there. And I just like closed my eyes for a second and then I opened it and I was like, I'm not happy anymore. And I remember running through the list of like, I love the kids. I have this, I have this, I have this. Why am I not happy? And it was almost like I just had to take a breath and says, it doesn't matter why, but I'm not happy and I need to make a change about it. And so that's kind of what took me on this new career path.
Listen, you're over here worried about not being a good guest and whatnot, but you tried to have me cry in a second. But before I shed a tear, are you happy in your role now? What you're doing now?
Yeah, I think so. I think right now what I've learned the most about myself in this journey is I've had to learn it. I almost had to take myself back to my childlike self as much as possible. I know that sounds almost like therapy terms or therapeutic in a way, but as I'm going through this journey and exit out of the classroom, I did deal with the challenge of losing myself because as I told you, teaching was supposed to be it since I was 3 years old. And now I'm not doing that. And so as I'm trying to find out what it is I want to do right now, if what I do right now makes me happy, I'm learning as a kid, I never did just one thing. Like when I was playing soccer, I was doing gymnastics, cheerleading, basketball, improv, this, I was doing 15,000 things at one time. And I think the reason I felt so pivoted in teaching is because I was doing that from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. every day. Where now it's like, hey, I want to go jump and do this, and it's okay to do that. So long story short, I am happy with where I'm at right now, but I've learned not to lock myself in. I've learned to really live that term lifelong learner that I used to preach to my students all the time. I've learned that it's okay for me to be a lifelong learner and not have to sit still in whatever role that I'm in every single day. So long answer short, yes, I'm happy now, but I know that that might not be the case forever, but I'm okay with changing again.
And look, we're just evolving, yo.
We're just going with the punches, evolving, growing. That's all it is.
Hashtag we're walking.
We're walking.
But let me transition to segment 2. This is a perfect segue to segment 2. Because one thing you mentioned, right, is burnout piece, particularly for K-12 educators. Not if we're going to speak on behalf of all K-12 educators in the U.S., then we'll do so, at least for this moment. But then I'm thinking about even athletic training, right, who athletic trainers are burnt out and then they end up pivoting like the PT or maybe the med school or maybe the PA because it is this balance piece, right? This balance is burnout, this integration that is not possible in their current role being, front-facing direct service providers. But at the same time, right, everyone is going to be on this season, and anyone, at least that I know, and I'm sure you know, finds some sort of value in education. And I think the second thing to that is that we need more representation in the classroom. We need more Black teachers. We need more Black men. We need more Black women but I'm burnt out. Talk to you, because being a K-12 educator is not just about the instruction, the curriculum design, et cetera. Like it's legit, like you're a face and a human and a presence that in many spaces is not seen, let alone appreciated or accepted. So like, how do you still find ways to be not just visible in education, traditional education spaces, and I put that in air quotes for a reason, but also thinking about like, was it my presence? Was it my gift? Was it both? But like, what is it about education that draws me to this profession as a career each and every day?
So just to make sure I understand that correctly, what drew me to the career each and every day before the burnout, is that correct?
Yeah, but even now, given that we still know that representation in the classroom, both in K-12 and higher ed we need more.
Yeah, I think that is the question today in education, right? Is how can we make this job marketable to new grads or even people looking for career changes, right? And I'll be honest, I don't even know if I have that answer, because if we're being fully transparent right now, it's not that attractive of a job. But I think if there is one thing that keeps I don't want to speak for all teachers, but a lot of teachers there, it's the kids. If there was one thing, and literally the only thing that would have had me work past my burnout, work past the place that I was mentally, or for the well-being of my mental health, I should say, it's the kids and making sure that they have everything that they need. And I think just knowing the impact that I had on the kids on a day-to-day basis is something that I know made me genuinely happy, made me want to come back every day. But that being said, to want to constantly be there for the kids, you have to be in a supported environment. You have to be in a mentally strong environment or mindset, I should say, to be able to do that. But honestly, the kids will keep you going. The kids will keep you laughing, crying, cheering you on, or cheering them on. But I don't even know if I'm wrong for saying that there's so much more wrong with it that it's hard to even let that be the selling point nowadays.
What you say? The kids will love you. What'd you say? The kids will love you and hug you. What'd you say?
They'll have you crying, laughing. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. The kids will have you. I have some stories. I'll leave it there for right now. We'll come back to that at the end. I have some stories.
We'll come back to it. But what I was getting at was the kids can't pay us.
Yeah, that part. Look at you.
And I think we're walking.
Reeling me in, baiting me in.
We just walking. But as I think about it again, right, we know the value. I think we can argue in whatever, in dissent about the value of higher education or education in general, whatever. But like at its core, I guess, I mean, we don't have to have the answers. I mean, I think that's one of the values of this podcast is I don't really want the answers. I want to be able to talk about it in a way that's unfiltered. But if we know that representation matters, right? You can't be what you can't see, but you won't pay me. That might be that's gonna be a caption soon. But like, I guess what I'm thinking about is like, if where your value, at least financially, is outside of classroom environments, how do you and or I, should I ever, and I'm most likely will decide to leave traditional higher ed, still give back and invest into those who are in the higher education setting, knowing that we know that they need to see us, right? They need to see that this is possible. They need to see that you can be more than just the damn doctor, the lawyer. Like there are other avenues. So how do we do that outside of traditional environments?
That's a great question. I think that's something that I'm trying to figure out now, because that's what I want to do, right? I want to find a way that in my current remote job, how I can still get in the face of students and be that face and that representation that they need. And I've toyed around with so many ideas, but one of the things I've seen at least Black USC do so well is getting involved in extracurricular programs with schools. I know that is it seems like such a small example, but from what I've learned, like even an hour after school with kids is so powerful. I used to have kids that would stay back just to help me make copies. And even in just watching them help me make copies, hearing some of the things that they were open to share in that small group setting or one-on-one setting was so much more powerful than in the classroom. So sometimes the biggest difference, in my opinion, was outside of the classroom. Some of my biggest aha moments with the kids was after school or in the lunchroom, on the playground. I'll be very honest. I can't remember a single lesson I taught. Well, I can remember some of them because some of them were awesome, no lie, but I can't remember a single lesson I taught. But I can tell you about that time I boosted, let's say Johnny, for example, Johnny's confidence because of this on the playground. I can remember that time after school, Johnny and I were running laps for his upcoming race, and we had this pivotal moment or this groundbreaking moment. So I think, to answer your question, if you can just be a face for a kid, whether that's a little brother, a cousin, if you can go volunteer lunch duty at schools and have those non-structured instructional moments with kids, that is so powerful. I think, especially in our community, what's not talked about are things like mental health, taking care of yourself in a number of different ways, and just giving them that face and that representation and living that life. Because I know I'm getting winded here, but the thing that I felt like I couldn't do was the constraints of the lesson plan, the scripts of the curriculum. That puts you in such a box where impact is limited. Find a place where you don't have that box and find a way that you can make such a pivotal impact on that kid without having to be in the classroom, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense to me. I think here's where I'm gonna turn this up a little bit, if you don't mind. In that, because you're in the K-12 environment. For the record, which grades did you teach?
Yeah, so I was 3rd, 4th, and 5th in my career.
So I already know you have people say, there's no way I can teach elementary school kids. There's no way I can teach high school. You've heard that?
Yep, plenty of times.
There's no way in hell. I can't talk to middle school like I can talk to a college athlete. There's no way. But nope. one thing I would say, at least for those who are working in higher ed, right, is that the issues, the challenges do not start their first year in college. Like, these are systemic, these are structural, that really start, whether it's pre-K, K, 1, 2, 3, just pick a grade. It's starting in the K-12 pipeline. And what I learned, even doing research on your bio and for your intro, I was all like, there's not just a huge disconnect between K-12 and higher ed as far as like us talking and, being more, having more synergy there. But I was reading like literacy, curriculum design, like what the hell does that mean? Or like science instruction, like what the hell, like where does this come? You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be honest and reflect that to you right now. But I guess, how can higher education educators and professionals be more aware and honestly invest more back into the K-12 setting? Because I think we could see a stronger, not just even pipeline, but measures of success for students, particularly non-white students and Black students entering higher education settings. What can I be doing even now?
Ooh, I almost think that is a hard question to answer in that order, because I think, right, it's K-12's job to prepare students for higher ed. And I think that that's where the disconnect is, where besides just finding ways to outreach, finding ways to increase awareness of the opportunities in higher ed, I think higher ed is already doing that job. I think my answer to that question would almost be the other way around. What can K-12 do to better prepare students, not only for higher ed, but the future in general? I think our role is to constantly prepare students for the next step. And a lot of times the next step, we don't even know yet, because those jobs, those opportunities haven't been invented yet. And long story short, I think the gap that you're seeing directly speaks to the need for increase in funding, legislation, awareness in the K-12 education market. And I think the best way that I can put a cap on that is, for example, people don't know much about K-12, especially elementary level. A lot of people hear elementary education, and the first reaction I got when I was in college is, oh, you're just cutting up gingerbread men and like going and sticking them on the wall. Like, that's it. And it's just having that understanding and full awareness, how pivotal I know I've used that word so much today, but how important the K-12 education is, taking that seriously, investing in it, so that gap that you're seeing in higher ed isn't as huge. Because I don't think there's any more that higher ed can do. I mean, obviously it has its issues, but the gaps in my eyes, based off research, are in K-12. And how can we elevate that to be competitive with other countries, but also set up our kids for success for higher ed?
This is some good shit. Let's stay on this for a minute. I guess, because you mentioned other countries, national perspective. I love it. Global. What are other countries doing, particularly within their K-12 equivalent system, that we as a United States, LOL, should be more aware of, if not incorporate within our own?
So this article that this is my favorite article to speak back to, and it's been a minute. So I think this article came back out in 2015 or 2016. So there's obviously more research since then. But I read this article when I was in college, and it was an article about Common Core. And I know that's you feel one way or the other about Common Core, depending on where you lie on the spectrum. But the funny thing about this article was Common Core was brand new. All of the teaching practices were brand new, but it was a Japanese educator who had done research. And pretty much in this article, in about 3 pages, he details American education is known for coming out with all of these brand new teaching practices that are great, that are amazing in education. And then what happens is, specifically countries like Japan, China, other high-ranking countries in education, get that research, they listen to it, they take it, and they apply it in the classrooms. And he was saying it's very interesting because he flew to the United States, came to the United States to just observe and learn more about Common Core, to learn from the best of the best, or what he thought was the best of the best, to enter into American classrooms. And all the research best practices that we've created were not being practiced in the classroom. But Japan or Japanese teachers took these ideas that we created. You can go in their classroom, you can see these best practices, and they're achieving or making growth with these best practices but we are staying complacent and stagnant in America, and we're wondering what happens. So again, that article was probably, I think, 2015, 2016. I'll have to pull it up and send it to you. I forget the name of it, but it was in the New York Times back around that time. And it was just so eye-opening to me. And it kind of spoke to some of the things I saw in the classroom as well, especially coming out of college. And I would come out and say, hey, I learned this in my pedagogy class or my research class of this. And all the older teachers were like, well, I have my copies from 15 years ago. Like, this is what works. So this is what we're going to do, kind of thing. So long answer short, I would just say there's no one specific country, but from what I've seen, we have a lot of great research, a lot of great ideas, but they're just not being implemented in the classroom.
This is so interesting to me because there's so many parallels to the higher education setting, right? Like we spend what, 2-3 year semesters learning about theory. Mm-hmm. And then we get into practice, it's like, well, we don't actually use it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Or we spend. Yep. So like, wait. But going back to your example though, particularly with the Japanese educator who came to the US and then went back. Mm-hmm. One thing you mentioned was like, you mentioned this in your LinkedIn as well, right? Metrics. Mm-hmm. Metrics, numbers, of course, standardized testing. I fucking hate it. Yep. I always say, obviously, GPA doesn't matter. Learning is more important, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. But in your role, like metrics actually do matter. Like, yes. And so what I'm curious to learn more about, because I know students obviously socialize into like numbers and like grading skills and whatnot, and that sticks with us until we had to break out of it whenever at some point, if not never. But like, how do we center learning? And I asked Michael this on his podcast episode, but how do you center learning, particularly with 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders? Mm-hmm. Understand that you also need to help boost standardized test scores on the exams.
Ooh, I am probably the worst teacher to ask this question because I hated standardized test scores, and typically around testing time where all my colleagues were getting stressed and like looking at data, I was the one like just sitting cool as a cucumber, like, I don't care. But honestly, I just tried to find ways to, one, obviously teach what I needed to, but make it as fun as possible. Sure. So just from my previous teaching experience, if you have followed my previous teaching Instagrams or anything like that, I was very big. It's like a Harry Potter themed classroom. Mm-hmm. So any time that I could bring in a taste of a Harry Potter movie, I would try to bring that in to get them excited. So for example, I think it was test prep season back in like 2018. And instead of just doing the typical packet and Scantron and sit and get kind of thing, we turned it into the Triwizard Cup. So I don't know if you're familiar with Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire or anything like that, but nerding out right now.
Continue. It's all you, sis. Yeah, go ahead.
But no, in the movie, they have the wizard tournament. So during test prep for like a full week or 2 weeks, each day, instead of having like, hey, we're going to read this passage and learn how to answer these questions, we started with like a clip of like a 4-minute Harry Potter video just to set the scene of the lesson, get them excited. And then all of their work was related to some type of Harry Potter activity. So for example, one day it was they had to read a passage, answer these questions while also chugging a water bottle as fast as they could. Wow. But really just finding ways that I could increase engagement while teaching them the things that they thought were the most boring things in the world. So whether that be through Harry Potter, sometimes I would literally move the desks out of my classroom and drew a line in the middle of the floor. We played basketball in the classroom. And it was like, this was mainly for the boys that were really into it. But I was like, if you guys get the question right, you guys can try and cross up Miss France and make it into the trash can. So just small ways like that to keep them excited. But obviously, as a younger educator, I still had a lot of learning, a lot of hiccups along the way that also, not roadblocks, but made it harder at times to help them meet their standardized test goals. But again, I was that teacher who didn't care. So
yeah, it was what it was.
It was.
So thinking about your role, and mm-hmm. Again, I love how you just have educator on your LinkedIn because it's a season number 1. But there's so many people that, to your point, don't really know and or understand, let alone appreciate mm-hmm. like the work that y'all do, particularly within the K-12 setting. And mm-hmm. I would even say the K-6 setting more specifically. So like for someone who has no clue, take myself, or just super naive, like all y'all do is print shit and like cut colored paper and you know what I'm saying? Like, what do you want us to know? Like, or what do we need to know to better support and advocate for y'all, not just on shit like this, but ballots,
Mhm.
legislation, and in communication with our public officials?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that people should know outside of just like the basics is half of the time there is an issue in your individual student's classroom, whether that be your child, your cousin, whoever it is, your teachers or your student's teacher typically has no idea what's going on. So most importantly, what I'm trying to say is give teachers grace. Because I can almost think of every single time I had a situation where a parent was upset or flustered or a family friend was flustered, it was something that was completely out of my control. And I don't think people fully understand how crazy the job is, but how little decision making is done by that individual teacher. So if you do have questions, if you have frustrations, give that teacher time to figure it out themselves, but also come from a place of understanding instead of accusing. Now, don't get me wrong, some teachers do need to get accused, given some of these stories I've seen with the teacher doing the Native American dance to Sokotoa. I don't know if you saw that the other day. Those teachers deserve ridicule, but not the majority of teachers genuinely have no idea who made that decision, why that decision was made. So just give them grace.
Give teachers grace. Grace is another theme of this season right now, because you mentioned it earlier, and I'm curious to know. We can talk all day about issues, right? There are teachers leaving in droves all over the country, probably all over the world. But what are some things pregame, if you will, that whether it's superintendents, principals, parents, I guess, stakeholders can do to help retain teachers, especially the good ones?
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, the basics. If there's any small way that you can support, whether it means just buying the Crayola pack of crayons versus Rose Art. We all know Rose Art is, if you're a teacher, you know Rose Art's not as good as Crayola, but that's number one, the basics. But number two, just finding ways, whether that be your time, monetary gifts to help out. So if that means you're a parent who has 15 minutes a day where you like stopping by your child's school, give that teacher a bathroom break, help them out in that way. But then outside of those small things, I definitely say get involved, whether that be the PTO, join those board meetings and understand what's going on in your specific city or county school district. So when it comes election time, you know exactly who you're voting for. You know exactly what policies you're voting for. Just because of every 2 to 4 years, depending on what state, I have tons of friends come to me and say, hey, I wait to the last minute. I have no idea who I'm voting for. What can I do? And I think the easiest way to learn more and understand about who you're voting for is by going to those board meetings, by sitting down and understanding those decisions that are made city by city, county by county, state by state, because those are the decisions that trickle down to the students, that trickle down to the teachers, and then almost get us in the standstill place that we're in now in education. So I know it's so repetitive. I know so many will say it in so many different sectors of American society, but if you can do your part and vote and learn about who you're voting for, that could really make a tremendous impact and difference. But also get Crayola over it, Rose Art. That's most important as well.
That might be the title of the episode, Courtney.
Crayola, hands down. I have to say, Ticonderoga pencils. That's another thing. If they aren't these, our teachers don't want them. I'm just letting you guys know.
That is a good pencil. And shout out to it wouldn't be an episode if I didn't shout out my mama. So yeah, she was involved in parents. Now that I think about it, that's why she was involved in the school at St. X, yo. She wanted to post on what was happening. Parents across cultures, man.
Yep. They want to know, but no.
I'll be sure to get involved in PTO, PTA.
Yeah, all that stuff. It seems unnecessary. It seems like a lot and sometimes annoying at times, but in the long run, it helps out.
This is good. I'm glad you said that though about what can K-12 do. Mm-hmm. I'm stuck on that because I'm not gonna lie. I saw my high school. They put together they hired someone who's like the career director for the high school. Mm-hmm. Like they have an internship program now. I'm like. Mm-hmm. This is very interesting. Yeah.
I definitely think it's a trend now. Like I know you said your high school has it. I know my high school growing up had it, but even just seeing some of the differences of the education I grew up with to the places where I taught. I mean, again, the school system that I grew up in is a whole nother world, but I had everything that I wanted and more. We had internships for teaching, technical schools that we could go to, IB, AP, dual enrollment. And then I came and I taught in Charlotte, and that wasn't the case at all. It was like a fraction of the opportunities I was afforded were given to these kids. And just kind of seeing some of those discrepancies is really, it's crazy how you can be in the same country and one kid gets something so amazing, another kid gets crumbs.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah, we're gonna change it, Chuck.
For sure.
I almost called it. Oh, I almost called you her name, yo.
Shout out to Chelsea, though. Shout out to Chelsea. If you haven't done so, go listen to her episode. What was that? Season 1, season 2?
Season 2, man.
Season 2, Chelsea France.
Shout out to Coach. Y'all the first sister guest pairing on this podcast. But before I close this segment out, is going back to like where you live, and I'm not talking about the redlining piece. That's but like even like partners now, I don't give a damn how old you are, but like trying to figure out like where you want to live in the country. Like one is like the weather for me, the breweries, you know what I'm saying, travel, whatever. But like legit where you live can dictate one's educational experience and learning. If you really just sit and think about that. Like,
I think that hit me when I came to South Carolina.
Oh, for real?
I wouldn't say it was like a huge wake up call. It wasn't anything that really like rocked my world. But it really did hit me. Just let me backtrack a little bit. Being an education major in South Carolina was different because as an education major, people also talk about their educational background. So hearing in class about these backgrounds, I just remember hearing about Greenville schools and just some of the different demographics of people versus Dorchester County versus any upstate schools and so on. But I just remember like as an Ohio student looking at all these South Carolina kids and just like kind of picking up the dynamics of all of their educational backgrounds and almost sitting like a fly on the wall. But it was very interesting coming to South Carolina and watching some of the Greenville kids. I went to Greenville city schools or whatever, and then Chucktown or whatever. I'm going to do a very bad impersonation of all these, so I'm going to stop myself now. But long story short, it was interesting to watch when I came in. Tim,
well, it's not even. But it's not even K-12. Like for me, and again, it's why I'm glad I got you on, because I'm much more aware of the K-12 setting now, and I'm thinking like, all right, how can I invest back in the K-12 and not just like graduate or doctoral education, which we'll talk more about. But I always looked at it like, okay, whatever state I decide to live in or choose to live in, you know, God willing, I'm looking at the higher education system.
Really?
So I'm looking like Cali has a dope community college system, 2-year, 4-year. Texas has a lot, Florida has a lot, because if you want to stay in state, it's there.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, it's not just the higher ed piece, because one, they may not choose to go for good reason. But it's like, how do I now even think about like the public school or private school available in that area?
Yeah, no, I definitely, obviously I'm not planning too far ahead. I'm trying to keep kids away as long as possible, but I've definitely thought about it. And it's just, as an educator, do I homeschool them because I know I still have my license and I can do that? Do I send them to private school if the public schools aren't as good? Do I charter school them? There's so many options, and I'm the kind of person where I don't know where I want to live. I know my boyfriend and I have talked about living internationally at some point in time. So it's just trying to find ways to keep my educational options for my non-existent kids open as possible, but also not limiting. Because I think that was a problem that I had growing up, and it wasn't imposed by anyone else, by myself, was like education looked one way. It was, you have to go to college. And once you go to college, both of my parents were in their careers for 20, 30 years, same job. And that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm learning that for my kids, it doesn't have to be public, private, or charter. It can be whatever works best for them and gives them the most exposure. And that's all I want for my kids. Because from there, it's up to them. They can do whatever they want. They can be successful, and whatever that looks like, I'm happy with.
It's real, yo.
You're talking about future kids that don't exist yet on this podcast. Oh, goodness.
Next time we'll have a beer. I'm drinking a smoothie right now, trying to be healthy.
I got my draft coffee, making it through.
We'll transition to segment 3, yo. How can I best support you? right? How can our podcast community best support you? Especially, and I'm glad you were honest, just transparent and open about this, right? But still finding and centering your joy, your peace, your happiness in this transition, this ongoing transition process, because it is a daily thing. Shout out to Dr. Willis who said that on the last episode as well.
Mm-hmm. I would say, first of all, as someone who is constantly trying to change and not put myself in one box, push me. Like if you are a supporter, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, close friend, like push me. If I have an idea, make sure that I'm chasing that idea. But outside of myself, I think most importantly is do everything that you can to support your teachers, to support educators, to support your friends, whether that be check in, whether that be send them $5 for coffee, which I don't even know if that's enough anymore, but do whatever it takes to check in on the mental health of your friends that are educators, especially now. You mentioned that teachers are leaving in droves. I left before this COVID drove came by, but finding small ways to touch base, show teachers that they are valued, show teachers that they're appreciated, and then most importantly, turn that into action by voting, because that's truly the only way that you can make a difference. And then from there, you can support me by also supporting the podcast. You know, I am an avid listener. Avid listener. I love this podcast, the things that you talk about. Keep on sharing the message, keep on sharing the journey, because this is what pushes me to keep on going. Some of the stories from Black USC that I've heard in the past, like that's what keeps me going. So keep on doing this. I appreciate it, and keep on supporting educators.
Love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. People waiting on their bottom bucks, yo. I'm still waiting on my damn trophy. I need a first. Being an educator in COVID has not been fun.
Oh, it's no joke. It's no joke. I have the benefit of still working with educators now in the role that I'm in, and just giving them a moment to vent. Like usually every single time I start a call with a teacher or a superintendent or anything, I just like, hey, how are you doing? Did you take a break this weekend? Did you kick your feet up a little bit? Just checking in, because this shit is hard.
Yeah, you ain't lying, yo. And I said, college students, we've had our come to Jesus moment a couple of times over the last 2 years. But them elementary school, you telling me they got to sit there when they met? I would have walked out.
Oh my gosh, elementary schoolers, they are one of a kind. I have to tell you this. I remember when I was in Charlotte, there were a couple stories I have from this year, but I remember I found a Post-it note on my floor, and it was like the game of Hangman. You know how you have the lines of Hangman where people fill in the blanks? So this time, this kid it had I eat the PUSSY filled in on the Hangman blanks. And I was like, I don't get paid enough for it.
No. See, no. See,
I was like, I can't do this today. No. I don't get paid enough. I need my mom to come down here and discipline these kids, because I cannot.
That's what I'm saying. I at least cuss mine out. Like,
good times. They used to try it, but I love those kids. They're my buddies.
That's real. Well, Courtney, before we bounce, yo, favorite sports memory?
Ooh.
One that you watched, participated in?
That's hard. Okay, you're hitting me with hard questions today. Favorite sports memory? I have two. Most recently was when I was in college, and it was when South Carolina played UGA at Williams-Brice. I think that's when the stadium was packed out, and like we beat the decibel ratings and everything, but like mind blown, hands down. The other one, I'm going to have to do a small plug for my sister. Shout out to Chelsea France, coach of the Maryland Terps track and cross country team. But Chelsea is amazing. Chelsea will never tell you how amazing she is, but I'm going to do it for her. Chelsea went to states all 4 years for every sport that she was in high school. And I will never forget the time where she actually placed in states. That was very exciting as her younger sister, watching her get up on the podium. She's done that a number of different times, but I think that was my favorite, just watching her be proud of herself.
She's so humble. And yes, Willie B was shaking. That stadium was shaking.
Crazy.
It was shaking.
I don't think I remember too much about that game besides that moment. Don't tell that to my mom. But that was a great game. If anything,
yo.
we're losing now, but we're still winning at tailgating these seasons,
Yeah.
so we're good.
Period, yo. Period. Hey, top 5 artists of all time.
All right. I know I'm going to sound super basic saying this, but number one of this time, this is in no particular order. Drake, Michael Jackson. I still cry over his death. I literally cried at his funeral. Whitney Houston, Adele, and then the love of my life is Sam Smith. Top 5 artists right there.
Okay. Sam Smith. The name of the acoustic album?
I don't think he's made an acoustic.
Stay With Me acoustic? I'll find it.
I don't know, but that man, every time his voice hits my phone, my speakers, I know I can't sing, but I am belting it out as if I can. So
you're bad. I'm gonna find this acoustic. Next question. This is a good one. I love this question. If you could go to brunch, bottomless brunch, you plus 5 people, who are you bringing?
I have to choose 5. Okay, 5 people. Who am I bringing? Number 1, I feel like it would be Meghan Markle. I've just been fascinated with her from day one. She seems like she's very honest and transparent. And then on top of that, Oprah, just because of her facial expressions in that interview, I feel like that'd be a good balance. I would definitely have to say my mom. Shout out to Ange. She is the true MVP. Ooh, I need to pick 2 more, Tim.
And Meghan Markle.
Levi, number 1. I should have said him first. And then last but not least, I'd probably say Ron Clark. I know I didn't mention him at all today, but he's one of my all-time favorite educators and he drives a lot of my passion in education. So I'd want him around.
Shout out to Ron, yo. Shout out to Ron.
Not to Ron Clark, my guy.
All right, Courtney. Last question for you.
Oh gosh.
Who do you want to see and or hear from on the Walk with TFB podcast?
Who do I want to hear from or see on Walk with TFB? Oh my goodness. So many people. I would definitely say, oh gosh, this is hard. I want to say someone from Black USC, but I don't want to rule anyone out because I feel like Black USC is doing so much.
They're all ruled in, and I have my own short list that I can't share right now, but I'll share it. I'll hit stop recording.
Oh my gosh, I can't even think of one specific person. So I'm going to rule out Black USC, and I'm going to say, Tim, do I have to answer this question? Because you're making me think too hard on this.
No one is. I mean, you're not ruling anyone out. Okay. It's just like someone that might be in your network or you have access to.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. I'm going to put on the homie fam. His name is Jordan Simpson. Jordan Simpson, shout out to him. He has done it all. He is relatable. He is funny. He is knowledgeable. I think he has a story worth sharing. So I'm going to go with Jordan Simpson.
I think he's in DC.
Holding down for Black USC.
He's in DC, right?
He is in DC. Right in your neck of the woods.
I think I saw him at a bar. Well, check this out, Courtney. Well, I'll hit Jordan up. He's around the corner. This was fun.
It was a good time.
I told you it was fun, and I will be. Hopefully, I'll be in Atlanta sometime early 2022. Hip and Hops Brewery.
Oh shoot! Okay, for that's a black-owned brewery here, right?
I'm trying to throw some. You know, I'm always working. I'm always plotting. Come on,
Let me know. Right down the street. I
should be a Hip and Hops, yo. But seriously, Courtney, France. Courtney, not Chelsea, France.
You got a visitor. So I guess he thought it was time to say hello.
It's all good, man. Thank you so much for your time today.
Of course. You want to say hi? Okay, Jesus. Come here. Come on.
What's up,
say This is Rocky. This is Levi's best friend.
What's up, Rocky?
Anyways, you were saying.
Thank you so much for your time. Shout out to Rocky. Again, thank you for all that you do and have done, not just for K-12 educators, but educators across the world. It's fucked up, right? It is what it is currently, but we're going to change that shit. And I'm glad we'll be changing it together.
Hey, it's lit. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to chat. I really had fun and can't wait to listen to future episodes. You know, I'm not going to listen to mine because listening to my voice is cringy, but
we need it. We need to play.
I'll have to listen to it with the volume down. We got to play it just to play so that everyone else can listen.
Oh man, everyone else, man. Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Walk with TFB. I already know y'all enjoyed this episode and cannot wait for y'all to continue listening to the rest of the episodes that we'll have and guests that we'll have on the show this season. Look forward to more unfiltered conversation with educators discussing education on season 4 of the Walk with TFB podcast. But as always, until then, welcome.